students of First BSc. This is the fourth lesson that you have for study. The Eyes Are Not Here by the author Ruskin Bond. Before I go to the text, let me tell you a few words about the author Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond, an Indian author of British descent, was born in Kasauli, Himachal Pradesh in 1934, and he grew up in Jamnagar, a place in Gujarat, then Dehradun and Shimla. A prolific writer, he has more than 100 short stories, essays and novels to his credit. Many stories are for children. His first novel, The Room on the Roof, was written when he was just 17 years old. He received the Sahitya Academy Award for English, Writing in India, and for his book, Our Trees Still Grow in Dhera. His themes include the joys and pains of childhood, love, nature, and the travails of growing up. Love for nature, animals, and people is the leitmotif of his works. Written in simple and lucid prose, his stories celebrate ordinary moments and everyday experience. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999. So these are a few lines that I want to tell you about the author Ruskin Bond. Now, this story, The Eyes Are Not Here, talks about a train journey. The protagonist being a blind man, and how he has come to terms with his disability or his blindness. And on his journey, he meets a girl who is also blind, but she too has been able to cope with her disability. She is a bold girl, and the poet at the end of the story is amazed by the way in which this girl has managed to live with her disability, that is blindness. So going to the text, The Eyes Are Not Here by Ruskin Bond. I had the compartment to myself up to Rohana, and then a girl got in. So the train compartment, when you see the word compartment, you know that he is traveling by train. So up to a certain point, that is up to a place called Rohana, he was alone in the compartment, and then a girl gets in. The couple who saw her off were probably her parents. The couple, a man and a woman, had come to see the girl off, and the author guessed that this couple might be her parents. They seemed anxious about her comfort, and the woman gave the girl detailed instructions as to where to keep her things, when not to lean out of the window, and how to avoid speaking to strangers. So the woman the mother is especially protective, or the women are more protective of their children and their voice their concern. And here this woman was giving the girl a lot of instructions about how to take care of her belongings, how to avoid talking to strangers, where to keep her stuff, her things. And the poet was listening, a mute spectator to what was going on. So the couple who saw her off were probably her parents. They seemed very anxious. They were a little worried, tensed about her, the girl's comfort. And the woman gave the girl detailed instructions. Detailed, very carefully. She was telling her many things. What were the things that she was telling her? As to where to keep her things. So she was giving her instructions as to where to keep her bag or her books or whatever she was carrying, her belongings, her property. She was also telling her how to hold herself in the train. Do not lean out of the window, she told the girl. And very importantly, as your parents will tell you when you are traveling alone, be careful. Avoid speaking to strangers. They then said their goodbyes. The train pulled out of the station. It was time for the train to depart from this particular station, and they said their goodbyes and they left. So this is the situation or the setting of the story. In a compartment, the blind man and the girl. So in the second paragraph, the author tells us about himself. As I was totally blind at that time. So when he meets the girl, he was blind. As I was totally blind at that time, my eyes, sensitive only to light and darkness, I was unable to tell what the girl looked like. So the poet was blind. And what could he see or make out? He could only differentiate between darkness and light. He could not see anything else. Maybe darkness, when it was dark, he could say that it was dark. Maybe there was some flash of light when it would be very bright. So his eyes were sensitive only to two things, light and darkness. So he was not able to tell what the girl looked like. But I knew she wore slippers from the way they slapped against her heels. I knew she wore slippers. So we see when we have a disability, the blind people are more capable of making use of their other senses, especially the sound. They try to find their way through the tapping of that walking stick which they carry. The sound there tells them. Or they are sensitive to certain other things that we normal people are not sensitive to. Or we don't make use of our senses since our eyes are working. But here, for these blind people, maybe the sight, I'm sorry, the smell, the sound. Okay, these they rely more on their ears, that is sound that they hear, maybe the smell. So here the author is talking. He knows that the girl is wearing slippers because of the sound that they made when they slapped against her feet or her heels. It would take me some time to discover something about her looks, and perhaps I never would. So he was playing a game. He wanted to find out whether the girl was pretty, whether she was beautiful, and many things about the looks of this girl. Since he was blind, maybe he was expecting some other passenger to join them, and then he would ask that man, or he would talk to the girl and find out about herself. So there was time for him. So this is how he was going to spend his time while he was traveling by this train, and he wanted to find out how the girl looked like, but there were chances that he would never be able to find out. But I liked the sound of her voice. She had a beautiful voice, he says, or somehow he liked the quality of her voice and even the sound of her slippers. So he tries to open a conversation with this girl, and he asks her, "Are you going all the way to Dhera?" I asked. So he was asking her a question because he wanted to find out something about this girl. So the train, he knows, is going to Dhera, and he asks her, "Are you traveling up to the end point?" I must have been sitting in a dark corner because my voice startled her. She was surprised or frightened. She was just taken by surprise when she heard the sound of a male voice in the compartment. Mind you, the author did not know that she was blind. And he thinks, because his voice startled her or surprised her or frightened her, he thought, maybe I am sitting in the corner of a dark corner of the compartment, and so she was not able to see him. She gave a little exclamation and said, the surprise was there in her voice, or the fear was there in her voice when she said, "I didn't know anyone else was here." So she says, "I'm really surprised that you are sitting in the compartment. I had not seen you until now." She doesn't tell him that she cannot see, but she just says, "I didn't know that there was anyone else in the compartment." Well, it often happens that people with good eyesight fail to see what is right in front of them. They have too much to take in, I suppose. Whereas people who cannot see or see very little have to take in only the essentials, whatever registers most tellingly on their remaining senses. Well, it often happens that people with good eyesight fail to see what is right in front of them. People who have good eyesight, normally, let us consider that we all have good eyesight here, and what happens to us? We have so many things to see that many things fail to register. Or when you come to college, on the way you see many things, but you cannot recollect, you cannot remember when your friends told you, did you see there was such a person on the street today, or do you remember this girl was wearing that colored dress, or do you remember she was with someone standing there yesterday? No, we don't remember such things because it has not registered. We have not paid attention to every detail that we see around us. And the author says that this happens because we have so many things to take in, so many things to see, that we are very selective in what we want to see. We see only what we want to see and we forget about other things. And many a time we fail to see things which are right in front of us. Why? They have too much to take in. People with good eyesight have too much to take in, I suppose. Whereas people who cannot see or see very little, what happens to them? They have only a few things to take in, only the essential things to take in. Or what registers in their minds is most tellingly on their remaining senses. So as you see, the sound of the girl's voice he's talking about the sound of her slippers. More than what his eyes can see, his ears can hear. And this is what through sound he is trying to build a picture of this girl, that she is wearing slippers, that she has a sweet voice or an attractive voice, and he wants to make her talk. Maybe because of the sound of her voice, he is attracted to her sweet voice, and he wants to find out more about this girl who is there who is traveling with him. I didn't see you either, I said, but I heard you come in. He says, yes, I too did not see you. I too was busy, but I just heard you come in. That is why I spoke to you. I wondered if I would be able to prevent her from discovering that I was blind. I thought so. He plans to play a game with this girl. Let me see, he tells himself, if I can successfully hide the fact that I am blind from this girl. So he makes a plan. He hits upon an idea, and what does he say or think to himself? Provided if I keep to my seat, if I don't move about, what will happen? It shouldn't be too difficult. It will not be difficult for me to hide my blindness if I don't move from my seat. The girl said, I am getting down at Shahranpur. My aunt is meeting me there. So she's not traveling to Dera, but she is traveling to a place called Shahranpur. And who is coming to pick her up at that point? Her aunt. Then I had better not be too familiar, I said. Aunts are usually formidable creatures. Formidable. Inspiring fear. So I'm afraid of aunts. They are always very strict And that is why he says, I have to be very careful. I should not act very familiar with you, or should not be over friendly in my attitude towards you. I better keep to myself, because if I make any mistakes, then maybe you will complain to your aunt and I will be taken to task or something like that. So he's just making a lighter conversation, and for fun he tells the girl, I'm really afraid of your aunt. I better not be friendly with you. Where are you going? She asked. To Dera and then to Missouri. So he says, I'm going to Dera and then to a place called Missouri. Oh, how lucky you are. I wish I were going to Missouri. I love the hills, especially in October. So the girl says, I wish I too could go to Dera and then to Missouri, because the hills there are beautiful, especially in the month of October. Yes, this is the best time, I said, calling to my memories. So he tries to remember the beauty of the hills of Missouri in the month of October. Maybe he was not born blind. At that time, he says, at the time when he met the girl, he was totally blind. So maybe he contacted or he became blind only in his later years of life. And so he tries to remember the beauty of the hills, whatever he has seen when he could see. Yes, he says, the hills are covered with wild dahlias. The sun is delicious. The sun is delicious. He's talking more, look, about the taste of the sun. Okay, because of his blindness, the vocabulary that he is using is not the vocabulary of sight, but of the register of taste. And at night you can sit in front of a log fire and drink a little brandy. Most of the tourists have gone, and the roads are quiet, sound, more concentration on sound, and almost deserted. Yes, October is the best time. She was silent, and I wondered if my words had touched, or whether she thought me a romantic fool. So he was wondering, what impression does this girl have about me when I'm talking about the beauty of the hills? And the way I'm talking about it, the sun is delicious, the fire and the brandy that he is going to sip in, sitting in front of the fire, the quietness of the streets. So he thinks, does this girl think that I'm a romantic fool? Because she's silent. What effect do my words have on this girl? He just wonders. She was silent, and so he wonders. I then made a mistake. What is it like? I asked. I made a mistake. He was trying to hide his blindness. But he asked this girl a question. How does it look outside now? And now he wonders, why is this man asking me this question? But the girl seemed to find nothing strange in the question. Had she noticed already that I could not see? She did not find how is it outside now when he is asking her. He wonders if the girl has noticed that he is blind. But the next question put his doubts to rest. But her next question removed my doubts. Why don't you look out of the window? She asked. What is it like now? Can you explain? So she says, you're sitting by the window side. Why can't you look out and see? Why should I give you the description of the scenery outside? I moved easily along the berth and felt for the window ledge, the opening of the window. The window was open and I faced it so he could see. In the beginning he tells us he's sensitive to darkness and to light, so he could make out where the window was, the light coming in, and he just pretends to look out at the light, making a pretense of studying the landscape, the scenery. And as he was pretending to look out of the window, look out at the trees and the plants or the faraway hills, what did he hear? He cannot see, so his ears are quite sharp. I heard the panting of the engine, the rumbling of the wheels, and in my mind's eye, I could see telegraph posts flashing by. So when that dark light is blocked by the poles of telegraph, light poles you have seen. So what happens? He can see as a train is moving, he can see the difference in darkness and light, and he knows that it is the telegraph poles. Have you noticed, I venture, that the trees seem to be moving while we seem to be standing still? So when you are moving in a fast train, you will see for you it appears as if you are not moving. You're sitting in the train and it is the landscape that is moving. The trees are running or the hills are running. This is what you can feel. And so he tells the girl, have you noticed when we are sitting here, it looks as if we are stationary and it is the landscape that is running or moving. That always happens, she said. That always happens. Do you see any animals? Hardly any animals were left in the forest near Dera. So she's asking him, can you see any animals there as the train is moving? I turned from the window and faced the girl, and for a while we sat in silence. He did not speak. And he was wondering how he could open the next conversation with the girl. And so for some time he sits quietly, and then he tells her, okay, you have an interesting face, I remarked. I was becoming quite daring, but it was a safe remark. Few girls can resist flattery. So now they had finished talking about the landscape. He wanted to find out some personal details about the girl. So at the very beginning he tells us, I want to know what the girl looks like. That was the game that he was going to play to find out about the looks of this girl. So he tells her, "You have an interesting face," I remarked. I was becoming quite daring, but it was a safe remark, for a few girls can resist flattery. So he says he was making a safe remark because he was just telling her. He didn't tell her you have pretty face or a beautiful face or an attractive face. He tells her you have an interesting face. And the girl laughed pleasantly, a clear, ringing laugh. She laughs when she hears the word interesting. Normally, you tell people you have a pretty face, you are beautiful, and so on. You may not have come across anybody telling people that your face is interesting. So she laughs at this remark. And he too is he's quite smart, and he has made a very safe remark saying that her face is interesting. She laughed pleasantly, a clear, ringing laugh. And she says, "It is nice to be told I have an interesting face. I am tired of people telling me that I have a pretty face." So she tells him, "I like the way you are using words. For the first time, somebody is telling me that I have an interesting face, because all the time people tell me that I have a pretty face." "Oh, so you do have a pretty face." So he is able to find out that the girl looks pretty. So when she herself tells him, "People tell me that I have a pretty face, but this is the first time somebody tells me that I have an interesting face." And I thought and aloud I said, "Well, an interesting face can also be pretty." So he tells her, yes. Aloud he tells her, yes, an interesting face can also be pretty. So we will stop here for now, students. The second part of the video of the lesson will be uploaded soon. This is the first part of the lesson, "The eyes are not here." You can go through the glossary that is there on page 52. Then you have on page 53 some vocabulary items. So please go through those items too, which we will discuss later. So that is all for today. Thank you for your patient hearing.